Hey guys, it's Arash, the man of thoughts, or am I? Sometimes I feel like my thoughts belong to someone, something else, like this dark cloud just follows me around, and lately it's been raining like all the time. You ever feel that way, like something's off, but you can't put your finger on it? Well, you're not alone. Today we're diving deep into the abyss of our minds to explore the hidden triggers of depression that you probably didn't even know about. Buckle up, this is gonna get dark. Remember that time you spent like an hour scrolling through Instagram, looking at everyone's perfect lives, their perfect vacations, their perfect relationships? Yeah, me too. And you know that icky feeling you get after? That's not an accident. It's like social media is this black hole sucking the joy out of everything. Literally, I feel like my brain turns to mush after 2 minutes on TikTok. So there was this girl, right? Let's call her Sarah. Sarah was obsessed with Instagram, like obsessed. She'd spend hours posing for the perfect selfie, editing her pictures to look like a freaking airbrushed doll. And don't even get me started on the filters. It was like she was trying to become a completely different person online, and the sad part is, it worked. People ate it up. Sarah started getting tons of likes, followers, and comments like, "OMG, you're so perfect." But the more validation she got online, the emptier she felt inside. It's like she was chasing a high she could never reach. Sarah started comparing herself to everyone else on social media, and guess what? She always came up short. I mean, how can you compete with someone who's literally face-tuned themselves into oblivion? The more time Sarah spent online, the more anxious and depressed she became. It was like this vicious cycle. She'd feel bad about herself, so she'd spend more time on social media trying to feel better, but it only made her feel worse. It got to the point where she was terrified to leave the house without makeup. She was like a prisoner in her own perfectly curated online world. And that's the thing about social media, man. It's like this highlight reel of everyone's best moments. We're constantly bombarded with images of people living seemingly perfect lives. And it's easy to forget that it's all just a facade. Behind those filtered smiles and perfectly staged photos are real people with real problems, just like you and me. Okay, so this one might sound weird, but stay with me. Ever notice how being stuck inside all day makes you feel kinda blah? Like you just want to crawl into bed and sleep for a week? Yeah, well, there's a reason for that. It's called sunlight, or lack thereof. Imagine this guy, let's call him John. John worked the graveyard shift at a hospital. He'd leave for work just as the sun was setting, and he'd get home as it was rising. Talk about depressing, right? The only time he ever saw the sun was on his drive home, and even then it was just a sliver of light on the horizon. At first, John didn't think much of it. He figured, hey, it's just a job, right? But after a while, he started to notice something was off. He was constantly tired, no matter how much sleep he got. He had zero energy, even for things he used to enjoy, and he just felt down all the time. Now, it turns out there's this thing called seasonal affective disorder, or SAD, which is a type of depression that's triggered by the change in seasons. But even if you don't have full-blown SAD, not getting enough sunlight can still mess with your mood. Sunlight helps our bodies produce vitamin D, which is essential for all sorts of things, including regulating our mood. When we don't get enough sunlight, our vitamin D levels drop, which can lead to feelings of depression, fatigue, and just overall blahness. Poor John. He was basically living in a perpetual state of vitamin D deficiency. It was like his body had forgotten what the sun even looked like. He was pale, he was tired, he was irritable. He was like a walking, talking zombie. Chapter 3, the junk food funk. All right, let's talk about food, or more specifically, the crap we shove in our faces when we're feeling down. You know what I'm talking about, the chips, the cookies, the pizza, the ice cream. All that delicious, comforting processed junk that makes us feel good for like 5 minutes and then leaves us feeling even worse than before. So there was this dude, let's call him Mark. Mark was a total stress eater. Whenever he felt overwhelmed, anxious, or just plain sad, he'd turn to food for comfort. And not just any food, mind you. We're talking the kind of food that should come with a warning label. Caution, may cause feelings of guilt, shame, and bloating. Mark's diet consisted mainly of sugar, fat, and salt. He'd start his day with a donut and coffee, grab a burger and fries for lunch, and then come home to a frozen pizza or a bowl of cereal for dinner. He knew it wasn't good for him, but he couldn't help himself. It was like an addiction. Now, it turns out that what we eat doesn't just affect our waistlines, it also affects our brains. When we eat a lot of processed foods, sugar and unhealthy fats, it can actually disrupt the balance of bacteria in our gut, which can lead to inflammation throughout the body, including in the brain. Inflammation in the brain has been linked to all sorts of mental health issues, including depression, anxiety, and even cognitive decline. So, basically, Mark was feeding his depression with every bite he took. He was stuck in this vicious cycle of eating junk food to feel better, which was actually making him feel worse. Chapter 4. The crushing weight of stress. All right, let's talk about stress, baby. That ever-present feeling that you're carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders, like you're one email away from a total meltdown. Yeah, that's the one. We all experience stress, but when it becomes chronic, it can wreak havoc on our mental and physical health. And yes, you guessed it. It can lead to depression. Meet Lisa. Lisa was living the dream, or so it seemed. She had a high-powered job, a beautiful apartment, and a closet full of designer clothes. But behind her perfectly curated Instagram feed, Lisa was drowning. Her job was demanding, her boss was a nightmare, and her personal life was a hot mess. She was constantly on edge, worrying about deadlines, presentations, and meetings that never seemed to end. Her phone was glued to her hand, her inbox was overflowing, and she hadn't had a decent night's sleep in months. She was like a hamster on a wheel, running and running but never getting anywhere. Stress, my friends, is not something to be taken lightly. When we're stressed, our bodies release a hormone called cortisol. Now, cortisol is actually a good thing in small doses. It helps us wake up in the morning, gives us energy, and helps us deal with stressful situations. But when we're chronically stressed, our cortisol levels remain elevated for prolonged periods, and that's when the trouble starts. Chronic stress can lead to a whole host of problems, including weight gain, insomnia, digestive issues, weakened immune system, and yes, depression. It can also make existing mental health conditions worse. So Lisa, with her high-stress lifestyle, was basically a walking time bomb. So there you have it. 4 surprising causes of depression that you probably never knew about. From the curated highlight reels of social media to the hidden dangers of junk food, it's clear that depression is a complex issue with a web of contributing factors. But here's the good news. Awareness is power. By understanding the hidden triggers of depression, we can start to make positive changes in our lives to improve our mental health. Remember, you're not alone in this. There are people who care about you, and there are resources available to help. And hey, if you're feeling down, hit that subscribe button and join the Man of Thoughts community. We're all in this together, trying to navigate the darkness and find a little bit of light. And who knows, maybe by sharing our stories, we can help each other find our way out of the abyss. Just remember, sometimes the things that seem to bring us comfort are the very things dragging us down. Stay spooky, my friends.